So my name's James McMahon. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. This place is an ever-evolving door of changes. There's a new sandwich bar downstairs. I've never seen that before. Is it good?
No.
Deadpan that.
Indifferent. Can you still get a breakfast for under a £5? That's good. I'm definitely coming back next year. So, yeah, my name's James McMahon. I edit Kerrang magazine. I used to lecture here, used to come here a couple of days a week and talk about music journalism and things like that. Last probably 5 years I've been doing Smile. Most of those years I've managed to bring some musicians along to talk about their experiences with music, and I've talked a little bit about the press and kind of its role kind of within all that. And I'm really pleased this year that I have brought Davyd Winter-Bates from the band Bury Tomorrow. That's where you clap wildly. Davyd Winter-Bates.
More. I need more.
And Will Gould from Creeper.
Woo! There you go.
I might try that again at the end when they've
When we've warmed them up.
Warming them up.
when they've warmed up. I'm a little bit worried that David's going to be too hot in this jacket.
Well, I've told you why I'm wearing this jacket.
I will share that with him.
I'm a big lad, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
That's all right. I'm a big lad, yeah. And sometimes, if you get hot as a big lad, you get sweat patches on grey. It's the curse of wearing grey, but I'm going through it for fashion over function. So.
Do you worry about it on stage?
Yeah, I always wear black on stage.
Me
Do you ever wear black, Will?
When was the last time where you wore something that wasn't black?
2006 or something?
Oh, thank you. 2006
6 or something? I don't know.
I think
I used to
MySpace
play-
was still relevant.
I
back
had
then.
that green Crime Wave shirt. I used to play in a hardcore band, and I wore this sleeveless. It was a really bad decision. Like a luminous green Crime Wave shirt for a while. Looking back, it was a disaster. I'm much better now.
I thought it was wonderful back then.
Thanks, mate.
No
Not so much now.
So, how long have you two? Because obviously you two are like local to the area, hence hooking you up for this thing, so that I didn't have to drag people from Wales like I've done in the past. How long have you two known each other?
Probably about 15 years, realistically.
Long time.
My first band and Will's first band. Will was the big dog on campus. He was in an amazing band, and my band
Big
would
dog.
big dog, and we would just beg, steal, and borrow to try and play their shows because they were always sold out at the Joiners. So
Right.
That's partly true, I think. He's
mostly
being nice.
true. Him and there was another band called Ant Stella. They were like the big Southampton bands that everyone wanted to play with because they were the big ones. And then
So, cutting into that, that's what journalists do, kind of take sort of information, carve it up, make it more palatable. How did you become the big dog?
What, like back then?
Yeah.
We just played in, like, I always wanted to be in a band, and we just played every gig we could ever do. Like, that was, like, the Joiners was like we were always a band with very low expectations of what we could achieve, and so we always just wanted, like, when I was a kid, I just wanted to play the Joiners all the time.
yeah.
So I focused all my efforts at trying to get a gig at the Joiners, and then when we did, I remember asking, when you're in college and you just get everyone you know to come to the gig, you're like, please come see my little band at the Joiners. So that's how the gigs would sell out, not because we were real popular, I just used to bully everybody.
No, but that's the thing. We were doing the same thing as well, but we were like, they already pull a bunch of their friends, so if we can play in front of them, then we can have them too.
Yeah.
And they can be our friends.
James, were you familiar with the original incarnation of Bury Tomorrow?
No, my story with Bury Tomorrow was that which I guess kind of, when I kind of try and kind of weave some kind of sense of logic and chronology into this, this will make more sense. But the reason I was sort of teeing you up with that question was that, like, Creeper, kind of like the last couple of years, kind of became this like band that everyone was talking about, like sort of very definition of a buzz band, really. And it's like now it's like, you sort of past that point, and now it's kind of like, proving that, that there's real substance to it, which I think is happening. Whereas with Bury Tomorrow, like, I always knew that name, and then it was like it took like one moment which was at Download, which I think was that
2013.
Yeah, and it was like, I can't. I mean, it was total chance. So it was like we were on the way. A load of people in the office were on the way to watch someone else, and then we kind of like were walking across the main stage, and like Barry Tomorrow were playing, and it was like, this is amazing. And it was like that. And then when we did that interview with you, you were a little bit like, yeah, we were kind of thinking of giving it up, but
yeah. I mean, the thing is that we were always one of those bands that we kind of media wrote us off for. I guess we had one of those names. It was that like the crossover from that era where like everyone had a name that had a day of the week or a time, and then a noun at the beginning. So it's kind of like Bury Tomorrow kind of became one of those things that even if we'd only been out a day, it was like, oh yeah, no, I've heard those guys. Didn't they play with, From Ashes to Autumn or Thursday? They played with one of them, I'm pretty sure, last week actually. So then that's kind of always been our curse, that everyone had already made a decision about what we were and what we were doing before they'd ever actually heard us.
do you think there's also an argument that you just got a lot better as well, though?
Yeah and no, because I think that a lot of bands progress. Like, when you mention Creeper, I mean, the thing is that Creeper have like almost come out in the last 2 years and become a buzz band, but Will's band before that, Our Time Down Here, there were years and years and years of hard work and slog, and I'm not saying by no stretch of the imagination I'm saying a Creeper, the same level as Our Time Down Here, but the music was just as good back then. Like when I was first in Bury Tomorrow, the music was very relevant. It's just that as we've evolved, we've given less a shit, I guess, about what is relevant and what we always wanted to play. Like so, and I guess music is cyclical, so it's more about waiting for your time. And if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you won't wait for your time. You won't ever kind of wait until it's your turn again to try and grasp on the world. Like, that's why luckily we were doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that's like super cool is that like when I used to lecture, I was working for the NME, and kind of like, although I was writing for Metal Hammer kind of a million years ago, like kind of wrote for a lot of what was maybe the indie press. Not that particularly exists now, but like, and our thing was always like a band, like on their second record, like it was almost like make or break. And one of the things I love about the fact of editing Kerrang is that like in rock music, it's almost like you can take you can take a while. Like you can almost grow into the job. But I think the thing that I was sort of saying back a couple of questions ago was that if Will's band was kind of like the band around town, how come it kind of took a while?
Well, for us,
yeah,
I think I was been involved in like DIY punk and hardcore for like most of my life. I was put on gigs and stuff, so I was very I wouldn't say uninterested, but I was very focused on the records that I was making rather than how as a career anything would go. I didn't think about that. I still don't really, to be honest. I just I think as a group, and Ian, the guitarist and Creeper, who we wrote most of the songs with together, like we just are focused on songwriting. Like that's kind of what interests me, like as a person. So everything that happens with Creeper is just a lovely surprise. It's
that's nonsense.
No, it's true. Like
no. You out of so many people I've met in bands want this to happen, and you make a fuss.
I think we make a fuss about what we're making in terms of like I'm very the attention to detail, our look and our music, but I'd never thought. When Creeper started, I thought that we'd do some local gigs at the Joiners.
Right.
I thought that I asked Ricky Bates, who runs the Joiners down here, he's my old housemate, and I said, is there any acts coming through that we can support on? I thought I'd work at the call centre my whole life and carry on making music as a hobby. And the most amazing thing happened over the course of the time we did Creeper, and it now means I do it all the time. And that's like the dream. It's like something. It's like a little fairy tale story, ladies and gentlemen, where like we just worked as a band and we wanted to tour. So my old band, Our Time Down Here, just toured all the time. We're in in a van that's touring, stepped in the van, like you know exactly that world as well. You know, just I think that's what's very similar with me and Dav is we just played in bands that just wanted to play so bad, was wanting to play all the time. It wasn't any end goal, but like we just were desperate to play. So we just made everything, put the rest of life on hold so you could go and play gigs, you know?
Dav, do you think that's a bit of a... do you think there's anything that's intrinsically South Coast about that?
Well, when me and Will were both growing up, like the scene down here was very insular. We all kind of looked after each other. Like it didn't really matter, like if you were a punk band or a metal band or an indie band. Like it really didn't matter. We kind of all just there was, you know, around that time, like when my first band Through These Lies and Aunt Stella, and there was a band called Open Room, and our time down here. We kind of all just supported each other no matter what, and I really liked that. Like, and when that was kind of dwindling as such, like that's when we came up with the idea of Pennyfest, which was basically a festival that we put on to kind of get that feeling back in Southampton, where it was a penny to get in, and it didn't matter what genre it was, and we just did it at the Joiners, and it worked. Like, and then that was the kind of real spark of bands like Burn the Fleet and stuff like that. That I think that there is a lot of talent in Southampton, and I think that with talent you never are fully confident until someone that you look up to tells you, no, this is amazing, this is doing it right. It's like you can believe in yourself, but sometimes, like particularly at the dark moments, you need someone who you look up to or you respect to kind of go, no, you're doing it right. And I remember when Bury Tomorrow started doing well, me and Will would talk, and Will would do that for me, and I've always had a huge amount of respect for what Will's done and what he's done for the scene and how hard he's worked. And I've tried to, me and Dan, my brother, we always tried to take our time down here's work ethic. When we were starting, we were like, we need to work as hard as them. If we don't work as hard as them, we don't want this as much as them. And that's kind of always how we've tried to do it. And so when people congratulate you on things, that it's not about feeding an ego, it's like feeding the drive, feeding that you're going in the right direction. Sometimes you just need that. You need a little bit of a knock right back onto the right path.
And the thing is about that is, in our first year, last year, Bury Tomorrow took us on one of our first ever tours. Like, it was the first time we were doing it. We were awkward. We had loads of stuff went wrong in our set because we were just.
It was amazing.
It was really good fun.
It was amazing.
It was a really good time, wasn't it? We had a right laugh.
I always said to you though, like when, if the shoe was ever on the other foot, like I would always do that for you because you did that for us back in the day, and I think that is what Southampton music scene's about. Like,
this is something right now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I love you, babe.
Well, welling up a bit. When was the moment you were like, I can live making music now?
I still haven't reached that moment. I still work. I still come home from tours and go back to work and stuff like that.
See, that blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of like a thing recently when I've been to... There's so many, like, amazing bands that, like, I kind of go away and interview and stuff. And they're kind of like, I'm like, what are you doing later? And they're like, oh, I've got to get back and lock the shop up. Yeah. Like, and I just think it's sort of frightening, really.
Well,
they're like a band of your size.
That's the thing. Like, I guess technically we don't have to work, but things have always gone so wrong for us that on every possible occasion that it's kind of like we could sit back now for a couple of months and we'd be like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to work. Like, I'm going to quit my job and call. And then something bad will happen and I won't be able to support my wife and, put a roof over my head and stuff like that. So now it's realism. Why am I doing Bury Tomorrow? I'm doing Bury Tomorrow because it's fun and I love it and I love making music. And, that's kind of, it changes your sensibilities. Like, I'm not doing it to make money. If I can make a little bit of money from it, then wicked, but realistically it's not my career, it's my love, and there's a completely different thing to that.
I do think that it's almost like sounds a little bit trite for me to say this in my kind of ivory tower, but it is kind of one of the things about the fact there is no money in doing this anymore, is that kind of the people who are doing it are largely doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I think as well, what you were saying before about you got better, and it was kind of like, well, yeah, we did, but we weren't it's kind of nice when you're not doing it for the money and you're not doing it for like fan attention, because they're all waiting for it, and you're not doing it for media attention, and then it's kind of like the music that you make then is purely for you. And if you're really stoked about it coming out, and you're really stoked about playing that live and sending those messages out into the world, and or doing something like, you know, writing concepts that nobody will ever guess in their entire life, but you know they're there, and then one day someone will come and go, is that connected to that? And you're like, yeah, well done. Like, that's kind of, you're able to come out and, you know, this is definitely the same for Will, because you've been writing stories and kind of, you know, those concepts for years, and it's nice to not have to write a song because you need it to be popular. And, you know, I don't need Bury Tomorrow's next single to go to #1. I'd love it if everyone dug it and thought it was amazing, but I don't need that to happen. So the only person I put that video out for, and the only reason why that video looks the way it does, is because we've gone, nah, this is what we want.
I think that's a similar thing with this. It's like, you know, we're not 18-year-old kids in this position. Like, we've done this for a long time, and to get to it, like you said, you wouldn't end up doing this at all. Like, I certainly wouldn't have been. It's weird. I thought about this the other day. In between our time down here in Creeper, I had like a year out where I just didn't do anything. I was just like really burnt out. Touring had killed me and ruined all my relationships back home, and just trashed my life, you know. I was like, I ended up doing the band again. I remember speaking to Ian and saying, you know what, we could just carry on working in these call centres, or we could just kind of write some songs and do that for fun while, you know, like in the evenings and stuff, we could have something to do, and it would be like, because I'm just really creatively unsatisfied. And I always often wonder, like, my life would be so different right now if if we hadn't decided to start doing it again. But you only do it because you certainly don't do this, get to this point of keep trying and trying and trying. In my case, like, I wouldn't have got to the point I am now if I didn't love it, because there have been so many points I've wanted, like, everything in my life has been telling me to stop.
I mean, I took the mic to my mouth, don't I?
In 2011, the year when we basically were like, nah, Bury Tomorrow's over, this is cool. Like, we did not play a show for 9 months, and I just remember sat there and just, like, personally being the most depressed I have ever been in my life. Like, and it would factor into everything I do. Like, it would factor into my relationships or my friendships and me going to work. I just couldn't creatively change myself or kind of like express myself. And it was really, that's why, you know, that was when it all changed for me, and I realized that it doesn't have to be a career to be satisfying. And we released a single not knowing if we had an album written, but we like, screw it, we're going to put our own money in and just release a single. And we released a song called Lionheart, and that basically was us going, see you later. Like, that was our like final goodbye kind of thing. And it was kind of that it was a reaction from that I was like, no, this is right. This is what I want. Like, I want to play music. I want to put out videos. I want people to hear what we're saying. And then it was no longer about money for me from that point.
What I've noticed as well is, as I've gone more into this world over the year, that I meet a lot of younger bands that are just obsessed with the business element or trying to treat the band too much like a business. For my liking, I find it really uncomfortable, especially from the DIY ethic that I've come from. And that's why I think it's important, and I think the better, more like satisfying music to listen to comes from a place of just pure love for doing it. And that I still think, like, a lot of the best music in the country comes from the basements and from the small clubs, from playing to 10 people. I think that's I still think there's a very strong scene there. And I think, like, as I said, like, both of our stories are very similar. We just worked at it for years and years and years, and we got lucky. But like, we would still be doing this. I think I would still be doing this if no one paid any attention. I'd still be working at the call centre and playing the joiners every couple of weeks or something.
It's weird, actually, because I used to, you know, I'm 35, so I'm a little bit older. But
only 5 years, don't worry.
Oh, that's half a decade. That's a World Cup and a bit. And I sort of, like, you know, kind of grew up on like tales of, you know, kind of found myself to sort of like the DIY scene, but like after sort of, you know, kind of reading stories of, you know, kind of like decadence and excess. I actually just met two of my writing heroes backstage who wrote a lot of those stories, And I was kind of like, it was weird because I was off work on Monday and I was watching this film, Kill Your Friends, which is like a sort of based in the music industry.
Fantastic book.
It's a fun book, and I was, I mean, obviously that the film's very silly and kind of out there, but like, it kind of actually, I know this is kind of the point, but it actually kind of like struck me that all of that kind of like wastage and like excess and like just lobbing money at a wall and not treating music as anything that was art just felt like brilliantly prehistoric. Because like it isn't there anymore. Like, and I guess the thing that is interesting is you saying all this kind of great music kind of exists in the basements or in the garages, and I agree with you. I just think that what kind of needs to happen now is that kind of bands do have to find a way to almost like make their bands industries of their own, like self-sustainable.
No, I think you're really right. Like, I think it's about, like, for Creeper, for example, like, there are things that, there are certain places you have to conform in certain places. For example, if we have to sell a T-shirt bundle, if the label wants to do something with a CD, a vinyl and a T-shirt to try and get some more money in, like, I always found it really uncomfortable because I'm not always ready to make stuff, or I'm not always ready in the mindset. I know you guys are very creative dudes as well. You must have a similar sort of thing. But I'm not always in the right frame of mind to come up with something. But I always try and make the T-shirts that we send with those bundles, for example, have some sort of larger meaning. Like our first shirt we did for Roadrunner had a Bad Luck Charm shirt, and it just said, it didn't have Creeper on it, it just said Bad Luck Charm across it, which was a lyric from a song. And I wanted it to be like, rather than someone just buying some shirt with like whatever on, I wanted it to seem like a prop from a film. So I made the people that we had do the videos wear the shirt in the video, and I wore it on stage every night. Like, it didn't say our band name on it. I just wanted it to seem like more than it was, you know, give it a greater value. So it was something a little bit more creative. So it's, and in a way, like now when I see kids in that shirt, I'm really stoked on it because I feel like people appreciate when you think about everything, like everything, tiny little thing. And that for us is the way we kind of try to make it something a bit more sustainable, but retaining that kind of ethic of making everything creative, everything means something, and everything not be just a horrible business all the time, you know?
Yeah.
I think from my point of view, like the hardest thing for us is always been fighting the stigma of A, the sort of music we play, and B, no, he hit the nail on the head right from the beginning. Like, we went under so many people's radars, and I think that really, when you say like the music's coming from the basement, it really is. There should be. It's not just magazines, and it's not just TV, and it's not. You know, the whole music industry is built to make money. That is an industry. That's what it's for. And the problem is with that is that a lot of labels, a lot of A&R, a lot of agents, a lot of magazines, all they want is a finished product. They want you to they want you to look like you are a finished product, and they want you to kind of sound like a finished product and stuff like that. And that's where I do think in the UK we miss a lot of talent, because we're not championing, like publicly, like labels and stuff like that don't champion the bands that are just amazing. You know, when you go and watch them and you're the only person in a Weatherspoons watching a band, which this is a true story. I was the only person, me and the dudes from the band watched a band in a Weatherspoons in Hull, yeah? And I was like, this is one of the most amazing bands I have ever seen live, ever. And I text our agent and I text our label manager, and I was like, you have to sign this band while she sleeps, right this second. Like, they're incredible, yeah? And the agent picked them up and did it on the recommendation, but like, that should be happening more. Like, I'm not saying that While She Sleeps are massive now because I sent a text, but...
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I am. But what I am saying is that, you know, one of the reasons why we took Creeper on tour wasn't because we were trying to go, we're big, you know, let's show you how big we are. We took them on tour because they were people who sounded years above where they should be, and people needed to see that. People needed to hear that. People needed to see Willis, a frontman he's been for the last decade, and has only got the chance to really prove that in the last 2 years. Like, people needed to see how good While She Sleeps were, that you know, they turned up. They weren't even on the bill. They turned up to come and play with us, like, and that was great. Like, when you watch a band, like for all you guys out there, when you watch a band, no matter where you are, you could be in a pub, you could be in a massive venue, yeah? Look at that band and go, do they have something special? It doesn't matter what they are or what they do. If they do something special, go to their merch, buy a CD or buy a T-shirt and support that and tell all of your friends about it, because that's what we need to do. That's what Southampton did for each other. And that's what, you know, you're the future of the music industry sat in this room, and you guys are the ones that are going to be able to champion the band that only played to 5 people but should be playing to 5,000.
That was the moment where everyone should have applauded like we were on Trisha.
Well, sorry, I got a bit Jeremy Kyle there.
No, it was good. Trisha's maybe a reference that students are a lot younger now. No, you've got a point though. But actually, one of the things that I kind of realised is that so there's this band I'm really obsessed with called Muncie Girls.
I was going to bring that up a minute ago, actually.
Great band.
Because like we were talking about like the mainstream press not really covering. That's true to a degree. But you think about. I'm sorry to interrupt you, by the way, James. But like a band like Muncie Girls, they kind of they're an incredible band, and like bands like Bangers, and like Narwhals come from that scene, and Narwhals I think really helped our band out a lot. We only did I know those guys for a long time, and they in my old bands we played together a bunch. I knew their old bands as well, just from the scene. But the way that they went and they had an opportunity and did press and things, and that's a lot of these DIY bands were like turn their nose up at stuff like that as well. Like and it's weird, and I think Narwhals opened a lot of doors for us on their own. Muncie Girls being covered in magazines is just incredible, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like that wouldn't have happened maybe 5 years ago, you know?
But I think that's more to do with a passion. I mean, when you came to Kerrang, there was a definite change in almost like the passion behind that magazine. Like, you know, I follow you on social media. I know that you can get your teeth into something, and it doesn't matter how big that band is. You do try and champion it, and I love that about that. I think that Kerrang is definitely not the norm, though. It definitely isn't the same hymn sheet that everyone's singing from. I mean, the majority of magazines out there want someone, and quite rightly so. It's a business. They want someone who are going to sell magazines, but you are in a position of responsibility when you're dealing with art that just because something sells doesn't necessarily make it good, okay? And just because something doesn't sell doesn't make it rubbish. And we are in a cyclical moment of dealing with that. And, you know, if more people in the industry that had influence were doing what you do with these young bands that you find and you champion, like, then we would be a much fresher scene. Like bands would be able to sound different because they wouldn't be afraid to take risks.
But I guess this is the thing though, because I'm going to lead on just before I ask if anyone's got any questions. I'm going to lead on to just kind of like I always find it really interesting because there's a lot of people who are kind of out there who are interested in kind of getting into the music press, if there is such a thing still. But like writing about music and kind of away from just kind of like almost like more on my side a little bit than your side. And I always find it really interesting seeing how like bands kind of feel about like the media, because like it's all kind of interlinked, and like we need you and you need us and so on. But I guess that from like a magazine perspective, like the thing with Say Barry Tomorrow was that like when I would say you got really good, which is also probably the point I came in, so I'm a bit biased. Like I remember kind of watching you and going, here's a band, here's like a British metal band that of course, you know, Kerrang should be championing British metal to the hilt, who have got there's got a load to them. Like they may have one of those names that you feel is kind of interchangeable to like other bands at a certain point in the scene, but like there's some real substance to this, do you know what I mean? Like there's so many amazing kind of little references in the lyrics and the artwork. Here's like a proper band that you can kind of believe in. And then obviously when like Creeper come along, it's like here's this guy who, well, it's unfair to the rest of the guys, but like here's this band that like really matter to everyone who listens to them. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not just, it doesn't just float over them. And I think that for magazines like that, you know, because you know, it's not like we're talking about, you know, kind of you doing a job or like kind of keeping the wheels on this thing. It's not like magazines are enjoying like the greatest time in the world, but I still think that it has to be about like creating these things that matter to people, like not creating because we haven't kind of, we're not in a laboratory and we've made Creeper, but like helping make them matter to people. So that's like, oh, you know what, these photos would be amazing if we did this, or this interviewer will like really ask the right questions and get really to the heart of a band that we can then show the readers. That's kind of that's where I'm coming from anyway. Maybe some magazines do it, maybe some don't. But how have you always found the press? Because I guess you must have seen a good side and a bad side.
I mean, I have a lot of friends in the press. Like, some friends in the press have slammed my band, and they're friends, but I stand back and go, well, no, I can see their point. It's honesty. And other people have been, with the darkest side of the industry is just purely, if I was to ask James right now if he liked my band or not, he'd give me an honest opinion, yeah? But the majority of people in that industry, and this is the majority, would, if we were having this interview right now, would go, yeah, no, I really like your band. This was really cool, this was really cool. And then would go away and be like, nah, that band, absolutely awful. No, not going to listen to that at all. And I don't mind people not liking my band. Like, it's kind of, to a certain degree, we are Marmite. Like, you either love us or you hate us. It's really, we're a metalcore band. It's one of those things. I don't think there is an issue as such with the media. What I do think is there is an issue as such with what we're expecting from bands. And this isn't just the media, it is the labels and the management companies and stuff like that, that what is selling? Right, so Kerrang put this out and that's selling really well. So we need our bands now to do what they're doing to get there. And it becomes like this process. It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily the fault of the media, but by the media focusing on those particular aspects, it almost stagnates creativity this side, because labels and management are pushing their bands to kind of look for example, Creeper have a very strong image. Yeah, you have a very strong lyrical content and a very strong kind of like ethic. Yeah, you completely watch over the next year. Yeah, as you guys get bigger, there will be more like gothic, kind of like goth punk.
Skinny boys.
Yeah, skinny boys, pale faces.
Do you mean New Grave bands?
That would be the one, yeah. But you see it right now, and you'll see bands that you all know right now and you all listen to right now, they'll gradually be changing. They'll be wearing a bit more black on the stage, and they'll all be, maybe wearing some makeup on the stage. And that is through pressure to kind of survive in the industry. Oh, what's popular right now? Like, they do a Madonna.
It's funny though. Like, I think that everyone I've been lucky enough to meet who's written about our band has been someone from music, and they've been interested in music. So when I've always enjoyed the conversations I've had with people, because I try to have a to and fro and find out what people are interested in, because the reason I got involved in music in the first place was to talk about music and enjoy music, like anyone does. And so I've always been lucky with that. What I have found funny is people's response to the media we've had. For the most part, it's been great. But I know that there are some people that would assume that because we've been featured in the magazine, that someone else has put my band together, or we've been given some sort of golden ticket because people are interested now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And you've come out of nowhere. You haven't earned your dues.
And it does me crazy.
That's what has always driven me crazy about your band from a friend's point of view. Nothing else is that I'll see comments on YouTube videos or stuff like that, like, oh yeah, no, we should be supporting these band. Creeper have come out of nowhere, and it's like, no, they haven't. Do you know what I mean? Will was in a band before I was in a band. It doesn't, just because it wasn't Creeper doesn't mean he hasn't worked for that.
I think some of the thing with me is, maybe it's just me being, precious, but, I spend so long worrying about every little part of our band, how it looks, how this is going to, how it comes across. The way we dress is something we've always looked like this. Anyone who knows us from Southampton, we always have. But because we've very finely manicured our packaging and everything ourselves and hired our friends to design it, people don't realise that. People just assume we got signed to Roadrunner and someone in the building's just gone, I'll just put this band together, And I find that frustrating, because I feel like it's a bit of an insult to assume that, to make a complete assumption based on the fact that we're in a magazine, that.
Yeah, totally. But it's also that thing that, there's a singer in a, incredibly popular British rock band, Ollie Sykes, who once
Very subtle.
no, they didn't hear me. And I remember him. There was another guy in another big rock band, Andy Piersack, and
I didn't hear that. Could you just say that one again?
he was like, right. So like, I like both those guys, right? I think the latter is like a guy that like really really matters to loads of people and treats those people really well, and I think the other guy is like a big guy and has done a lot for this music. But there was such like animosity about the fact that like the latter guy like wore makeup or like had like a look. Like it was just so like, well, you know, it's not like a real thing. And that bummed me out so much because like I loved, you know, like I love MCR and I love the Ramones and, you know, like I even like Kiss, you know what I mean? Like I like bands that look like bands, you know what I mean? So I think that in your case it's almost like you're almost like an anomaly at the moment because music has become like a lot of the bands that we know, they kind of do look like plumbers, you know?
But the thing is that they're backing it up with music that appeals to not only kids, but the people who grew up listening to My Chemical Romance, AFI, Danzig, Misfits,
totally.
and like that's the difference. It's like if you're a Misfits fan or you're an AFI fan, and all of a sudden you're placed in front of Creeper, like you're kind of like, well, these guys are awesome. Do you know what I mean?
The cool thing about it is what I'd say about this is at the shows we play, like when you go to a show like the Underworld the other day or something, like it was crazy to see the mix of people, and that's what I like most about doing our band is I like meeting people, and I like especially like-minded people. And these are like-minded people that all look different. There were like some middle-aged mums and things, and they were like who love it because it sounds a bit like Meatloaf in places. They're stoked on
Calm
that.
down.
And then there's some really young kids, you know, and like young girls and stuff. And then there's kids that just want to stage dive, just want to constantly stage dive, and you know, like break all our stuff as they stage dive, and like you know, like because we kind of attract a bunch of different people, and I think the bands that influenced me growing up, like you said, AFI. I love like the Nerve Agents and bands like that. Like I grew up with the Damned, love the Damned, and I always felt like those bands. I liked that it was theatrical and like early MCR and stuff as well. It's theatrical, but it had this element of danger, like it could all fall apart.
Yeah.
Like watching, if you watch like pro wrestling, like The Undertaker and Mankind, you know, watching The Undertaker dressed like some sort of new romantic dad, like getting thrown off a cell or something, you know, like I like the kind of the danger mixed with the fantasy. I like that combination of things.
I don't think you can reach a certain level in rock and metal without having theatrics. Like that's the straight up, like, you know, you look at someone like Avenged Sevenfold, perfect example. They were always a bit theatrical, but when did they become this behemoth of metal? It was when, you know, they thought more about the show and they thought more about the look and they thought more about the creativity in that. And I do think you almost reach a level if you don't have the you know, prime example, Bring Me the Horizon, yeah? They got to a point and they were like, shit, how do we get bigger than this? Right, they pulled up not just the production, but kind of like they changed the way that they wanted to be perceived. And they've done that with every single album, and no matter what you think about Bring Me, they have changed every single album to meet the level of venue that they want to play, and that's the most important thing.
I think the thing I was trying to get across though is that it is that thing that quite often I hear it's all about the music, and you go, well, it is, and like if I worked in radio, I wouldn't be arguing with that at all. But like for music magazines, it isn't all about the music.
It's all about the entertainment.
What that's part of it, but it's about the music, and then there's the stuff that stimulates the other senses, you know, and like a lot of that is like helping make people believe and feel things, you know. So I guess that, you know, kind of almost what I'm just want to say is almost like kind of a last question before I wrap it up is that, you know, when a magazine goes, all right, babe, tomorrow we want you to do this photo shoot and we want you to dress up as badgers, like how do you not? It's more
Badger
about
tomorrow.
It's normally
Badger tomorrow, like that.
Normally comes from somewhere of like this will be good, you know. But like, how as bands do you feel? how do you find that experience?
give a shit about dressing up like a badger, James. If that's
I'm
what you want from
I'm
me.
gonna bear that in
Like,
mind.
no, but seriously, like we're not. We've never taken ourselves very seriously. Anyone who knows me or follows me on social media.
But do you like having? There are a lot of bands increasingly, because the reason I said Monty Girls kind of way back when was almost like they are like a DIY band, right? That's how they see themselves. But I see them and I go, you know what? Like at some point before I got into punk, I wasn't cool enough to be into punk, and I want that band to like matter to people who haven't navigated their way into this kind of underground scene, and they're a little bit.
So you're almost giving them a platform by going, look, if you do this, I think it'll
That's what
open
I
you
think,
up to a
like.
And that's the thing. I don't mind that. It's kind of like I don't mind if someone's doing that. Like, you know, when we do a shoot, if it's because they're trying to make someone feel in a certain way and act in a certain way. What I don't like is like, you know, we released an album called Union of Crowns, yeah, and every photo shoot that we did was like, right, so he's going to be a king, you're going to be a jester, they're going to be knights, and you were just like, come on, guys. Or the classic one when we first started, okay, so we're going to have you burying your lead singer, okay?
Yeah, we.
Or we're gonna put no, you weren't the only one. You were the first actually. So, or we're gonna put Danny in a coffin. Okay, bear with us. It's 'cause you're called Bury Tomorrow, and you'd be like, oh really?
But I tell you what, just as like a little insight is that the last feature we did with you when we did it was some kind of Masonic.
The Masonic temple. Yeah, that was rad.
That genuinely was like a bunch of us sat around in a room going, how can we make this band that we like, who have like followed up on a good record with a really good record, how can we make this band like feel like almost like bigger than they are?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about like the camera could be here, and we talked. So it was almost like
and visually that came across when.
That's what, so I guess it's that kind of thinking of like, I can understand why bands are like, well, you know, I don't want to dress up as, you know.
This is legit. So in the same week that we got the call from Kerrang to go and do this shot in a Masonic temple to kind of appear like, you know, like champions or bigger than we were, you know, because that's what we're aiming for with the new record. We got another request, and I won't name the magazine, and because the album was called Earthbound, they wanted us to do a photo shoot planting trees. Straight up, and that's the difference. Like, it's about it's about why you're doing it. Like,
why haven't you done like a photo shoot when you're in space yet?
I don't know at all.
If you were in my magazine, I'd have you out in space, you know.
All in
Homebound.
astronaut costumes.
Space don't sell.
Space doesn't
sell.
No, we did El Shikari Spaceman. We don't talk about that issue. I got a little whisper in my ear saying to wrap this up. I don't know whether that means that you're not allowed to ask any questions, or it means that I have to wrap it up. If someone could confirm that.
Well, no one's commented, so just go for the questions.
Wrap it up.
Soz.
Sorry.
Should we all do that, dude? No, let's not do that. If anyone wants to ask the guys anything, well, they're their own people. They can do what they want.
We'll be hanging around.
But if anyone wants to ask anything, then give us a shout after, and we'll do that. All right, thanks for listening.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.